Good afternoon, folks. Welcome to Going Live with the Global Science Show during a Global Science Show that's ongoing today. I hope you're enjoying today's show that's in partnership with the Great Science Share for Schools. We've got so many amazing things that have already happened and so many more amazing science communicators and scientists that will be sharing a little bit about who they are and what they do throughout today. For the next 15 minutes, though, we're going to be treated to something a little bit different. We're going to go for a live show. It's not with me. Don't worry. I'm going to shut up in just a second. I'm going to welcome onto the screen our host for our show. It's Phil Jemmett.
Hello, Phil. Everyone. Hi, Sam. Thanks for introducing me.
No worries. I am going to very, very quickly disappear with my coffee and leave you to it. So please enjoy the show, folks.
Thank you, Sam. And I've got to say, I am a little bit jealous of you having coffee right now. But hello to everyone watching at home. And as Sam said, welcome to the Global Science Show. I'm normally doing very heavily edited 2-minute-long videos full of chaos. But this time I'm going live, which means you get to see a little bit more of the chaos as it happens live. I get to see some of your comments as they come in live, and hello to everybody watching, like Alex. No, I'm not going to show everyone behind the scenes and show the webcam setup. Not happening. It's too much gaffer tape and string. But we are going to be talking about materials and how we can use those materials to do things, build things, make things, use the properties of those materials to try and get stuff to work or not work, or break when it's supposed to, or stay strong when it's supposed to. So we're thinking about how we might be able to save the world. All right, it's a big mission, isn't it? But we use a lot of products, we build things all the time, and the greatest example, plastic straws, right? Try and find a plastic straw now. We all said we wanted something better, more sustainable, more eco-friendly that isn't going to get stuck up a turtle's nose somewhere. And now we all have lovely metal drinking straws, which I think are great. You can chuck them in the dishwasher. They're reusable. So that's one of those 3 R's, the reuse, reduce, recycle kind of thing. And we're going to be thinking in the next 13 minutes or so about those properties of the materials that maybe mean that we could reuse them or use less of them or use a different material that might be more eco-friendly. So when I say properties of materials, what do I mean? What am I thinking about? Well, there's a lot of them. There's probably a lot of different words that you've heard before, things like strength or toughness or hardness, or whether something's see-through. Maybe you can see a bag, maybe see through a bag, like a paper bag with a pair of scissors in it. If you don't know what I mean, you need to watch more of the Global Science Show. So go back through those posts and watch that one. Maybe things like magnetism or conductivity, which I kind of think it's magic, but there we go. And there's a lot of different properties that we can play with. So we're going to try and hit a few of those over the next 15 minutes. Yeah, that's right. We are going on screen with high-tech graphics. Thank you very much, Sam. I'm trying my best. You know, we've got a good audience. They deserve the best. So let's start looking at some of those material properties. We've got bits of paper. And as you know, paper's quite floppy, so it doesn't really hold its shape, does it? But what about now? One clever little trick, and the paper holds its shape. And it's just because I've put a little bit of a bend in there. And if you don't hold that bend, it flops down. So we can make materials more stiff by the shape that we make them in. So if ever you want to make a paper bridge, you want triangles. So if I try and squash this, I can push as hard as I like, but it doesn't really squash like a normal piece of paper would, or bend or move out of the way. So we can make materials, thin materials, much stronger so they hold their shape just by how we fold them. Now that's something to think about. Because if we want to make a bridge, let's say you're making a bridge in a school activity, it's got to be nice and light. This is a bit of metal, so it makes a sound when you hit it, but it's really heavy, but it holds that shape. So could we make this metal thinner and still get it to hold its shape? What do you think? Let's have a look, shall we? I've got a gigantic meter-long metal ruler, right? And if I hold it like this, it's only ever so thin, but it's holding its shape. But as soon as I turn it that way, it just flops. So because of how thin this material is, it can't hold its shape. It just flops around. It's not a stiff material until you hold it that way. So stiffness is about how much it bends or how well it holds its shape. So let's just drop that on the floor. There's plenty of other properties that we can play with materials. You might think about things that stretch. So elastic bands are a good example. maybe something that you can squash, so some modeling clay or something like that? Or how about a material that you can blow up so we can stretch, again, like the elastic band, but we can get it to do something. So if you blow up a balloon, it's got bigger, right? It's stretched. The rubber on the outside has got thinner. So what happens when I take the cork out of the bottom? Well, obviously, it's not empty, is it? There's something in there. There's my breath. I breathed into it to blow up the balloon. So when I let go, the balloon flies away and causes chaos. So thinking about what's inside a material that you can't see might be able to teach us something. We might be able to use that. So you couldn't see the air inside the balloon, but you know that it's there and it can do something. It can change the way that material behaves. So a good example of that, I've got two bottles here, one on top of the other, okay? One of them is filled with water, so you can see there's water in the bottom of that one. One of them is completely empty, right? Wrong. It's not empty. If it was empty, this would be a vacuum and the bottle would all be squished up. But it's not empty, it's full of air. So let's think about what might happen when I turn this bottle upside down, okay? So when I flip it upside down, is the water going to stay in this bottle but be at the top? Or is it going to pour down into the other bottle and be at the bottom? What do you think? Raise your hands at home, shout at the screen. I'll probably hear in some way. I'm sure Sam is screaming backstage what he thinks is going to happen. Is it going to be fun? Is it going to be exciting? Is it going to pour fast? Let's find out. So the bottle is upside down. It's pouring, lots of bubbles, blub, 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 but it's a bit boring. Now I'm on a time budget here, so let's try and speed this up. That's better. It's pouring a bit quicker now, isn't it? And we have a tornado, which I think is quite cool. Let me show you that again. Flip it upside down, bubbles, give it a spin. And we have a tornado. It helps it empty much, much faster. And what's happening is the air needs to get into the top. The water wants to get into the bottom. But they crash into each other in the middle and get in each other's way. They block each other from moving. So when I spin it, what I'm doing is I'm using the properties of the materials to make it behave in a certain way. The water's heavier than the air. That's why it falls. But also when I spin it, the weight of that water means that it gets pushed to the outsides. So the water's going around the outside, the air's going through the middle, and it's like having a corridor with a keep left sign. Everyone knows how to get past each other. So that is a good one to think about if you want to see how the bits that you can't see, the bits that might be see-through or hidden from view in a material, they might be the most important bits. So while we're on that subject, thinking about density and how much materials might weigh, let's resurrect one of my favorite demos that I used to do on tabletop. So as you can see in here, there's something floating around inside that bottle, right? How could we make it sink? You can make it heavier, or you could make the liquid inside there less dense, I suppose. Or I could push down on this plunger. So what is going to happen when I push down on that plunger, do you think? It's connected up by a big tube. It takes quite a bit of force, but any second now, it'll work. There we go. So it starts to sink. So I'm going to have to hold this up a little bit more. Now, the real trick with this one, which used to be the game when we did this in public, is can we get that little thing, whatever you'd call it, floating up and down to sit just in the middle of the bottle and hover. Just about. There we go. Bit tricky. But it's because I'm squeezing down on this plunger, which changes the pressure inside that bottle. So what we're actually doing is squashing the air up closer to other bits of air, squeezing it into a smaller space. That makes it more dense. So we can change the density of the air inside the bottle. And that is what's going to make that little diver sink. So lots of properties we can play with, maybe things that you can't always see. But what if we wanted to make something move? What if you wanted something that maybe spins around or behaves in a certain way? Well, you're probably thinking of a motor or a wheel or an engine or something like that, right? But for that to work, we're going to need some mess. There you go, Alex. You wanted some mess. You've got some. I've knocked over my first demo. We're going to bring something in here to just put under the camera so you can see this stack of magnets on top of a battery. Now, this is always my most temperamental demo, so we're going to have to see how it goes. But if I just pop this on top here, hopefully we can get this to work. Is it going to work for me today? Just about. You can see it wants to do it. It's not quite. I'm going to try and edit it very, very quickly. I only get one attempt at this. Is it going to work? There we go. It's spinning around, okay? So what's happening is that there's electricity flowing through the wire, but there's also magnets at the bottom. And those two things interact with each other and make this thing spin around and move. So let's get rid of that. So like I said, there's properties there that we can't always see, but they affect how everything is behaving. We can play with that kind of thing. So another property, let's move on a little bit, color. What color is this piece of wood? So maybe we could put in the comments what color you think this piece of wood is, or if you're at home, have a vote. So let's have hands up for blue or hands up for green. What about hands up for yellow? We've got blue in the comments, a very specific blue, which I think is a fantastic reference. There we go. And how about those hands up for yellow? I think we've got one hand up for yellow just there. So this paint actually changes color based on how warm it is. So we can think about things like conductivity. So if I grab this glove and I hold it on the other side of this piece of wood, I'm going to hold it like this for just a minute while I tell you about this. We can think about why oven gloves are so brilliant, because you can have dinner without burning your fingers, which I think is pretty great. But if I hold this for just another couple of seconds, we have those votes of which color it was going to be. You're thinking about it. It's green to start with, greeny blue. When I take that hand away, it's changed color. It's gone a bit more yellow. But this one, same color. So where my hand wasn't in the glove, it's changed color. Where it was in the glove, it stayed the same. So that's because this glove does not conduct the heat of my hand into the wood and change the temperature. So we've looked at conductivity, magnetism, how stiff materials are, how bendy they are. We've looked at things like strength. So we know if we want to make a material really strong, we want to make it into little triangles and things like that. But I think the most fun thing that you can do with materials is change the way that air moves around them. So I'll show you a good demo for that. What you need to do, maybe turn your sound down for just a second. If you grab yourself a hairdryer and a ping pong ball, what we can do is make it hover. Briefly. There you go. Nice one for you to try. There's a material bouncing, another property. And that is because the air is rushing around that ball, making it move. And the best example of air moving around things is obviously paper aeroplanes. So let's move over to plane can, which is up there, and think about how we might get a material to move through the air. So we want it to be nice and pointy, obviously. So when I throw this paper aeroplane, it can slice through the air, fly, and hit that door. If the weather was warmer, I'd definitely have that open and chuck it out, but it's raining, so we won't. So these paper aeroplanes, they're pointy, they're quite thin, they move through the air nicely. But what about this one? Does this look like a paper aeroplane to you guys? What do you think? Well, I'll throw it and you can make your own minds up. That one flies better than any other paper aeroplane I have ever made. It can fly so far. It's because of the way that we use the air to move around it and the properties that that gives it. But the absolute best, as my last demo, the absolute best if you want to make a piece of paper stay in the air for the longest time is this one, a helicopter. So when I drop that, look at that. It spins, and it spins through the air like the blades on a helicopter would. Let's go back to the normal camera. And that just about does it for all of the time that I have got. Normally you get 2 minutes of me absolute chaos, and hopefully this time you've had 15 minutes of me doing absolute chaos. But if you want to make materials that are strong, you want to think about making them thinner to be more sustainable, use triangles. If you want to think about not burning your fingers when you get something out of the dinner, get your oven gloves because they don't conduct the heat through things. If you want to build a motor, you need some magnets and you need some electricity, and some things are blue. That's what we've learned. So remember all of that. Remember all of the properties and materials. Start playing around and investigating with things around your house. And hopefully we can design materials through research that save energy, that are easier to produce, they're more sustainable, and don't get stuck up turtles' noses. I think that's how we can build a much better world for all of us to live in. That's it from me. I've been Phil. Thank you for watching. Let's go back to Sam.
Thank you so much, Phil. That was fantastic. Like so many things.
Thanks for having me.
Oh no, like an absolute pleasure. Like so many things that you managed to squeeze into a short space of time.
Yeah, the trick is that you start with everything on the desk and it ends up off the desk. So in the comments where Alex asked for more mess, yeah, it's all there.
Well, it's perfectly prepared, and like it worked so well. Thank you so much for that, and I'm sure that there'll be questions coming in for people. There's people watching live, but for people who watch it back as well, you can watch it back on Twitter. Leave comments below, and I'm sure Phil will be able to answer any questions or leave comments on YouTube as well. Yeah, that's it for today. We have so much more coming throughout the rest of the Global Science Show today, all the way up until 7:20 p.m. tonight. So I hope you enjoyed this, and for now, take care, and we'll see you all very soon.